Hi everybody, welcome back. Today I'm going to be profiling a PK Orcust deck list. So it's a little bit of a throwback to 2019, right at the release of Dark Neostorm when this deck was quite popular. Obviously Dingisu into Rusty's Zone with 2 Fogblades set was kind of the game plan. So I've kind of reimagined it for a 2021 format. So I'm going to play this at locals. It was a really fun deck back in the day, and yeah, I think it should do relatively well at my locals. We'll see how it goes. Now, I know last week I posted my Lair of Darkness artifact list that I was going to play at locals last week. I ended up not playing that. I actually took out the Lair cards and replaced them with a small Salamangreat engine, because nearly any of, or pretty much all of the good Salamangreats is a 1-card Dagda. And then it also gives you the added the flexibility of then having kind of a win button going second or going into turn 3. So if you'd like to see that video, feel free to comment and request it, and I will post what I played last week. And it didn't perform overly well. I think I finished in 5th or something like that, but it kind of did what it was meant to do, at the very least. We're also really close to 200 subscribers, which is pretty cool. And I've got a video planned, or a deck list planned, just to kind of celebrate that. Going back to one of my favorite decks, which I have profiled before, but this is a tweak on that. So I'll get straight into this deck profile. So similar to what it did in 2019, I guess we're trying to get to Rusty, Fogblades, and like a Dingisu play, plus whatever else you can kind of accrue. So this card obviously wasn't around in 2019, but we're playing 3 Gearsu, the Orcust Mech Knight. This is your best normal summon. Because there's obviously 2 ways you could play this. You could play a small Orcust engine and hope to draw into it like 3 Nightmare and discard it with Torn Scales as one way, because Rusty already facilitates all of your Phantom Knight plays, but there isn't really any extra deck ways of getting into Orcust's guaranteed. So you kind of need to have Gearsu and the Orcust as the primary focus, and they help with your grind game as well. And then the PKs kind of help get you there as well. Playing 2 Orcust Nightmare. I'm playing 2 Symbol Skeleton. I know this probably looks silly. Could very well be 1. Could very definitely be 1 actually. It's really nice that it's a level 3. You can actually send it off Cherubini. So if you do go the Phantom Knight route, you can send Orcust Symbol Skeleton as your level 3, which on its own doesn't really do anything. But if you have a way to access Symbol or another Orcust, then it's really good. Also, if you access Cherubini after doing, if you only have access to Gearsu, because Gearsu doesn't get you to Nightmare and to Symbol on your turn, if you can get access to Cherubini through Rusty, then Symbol can be your target there, which is a pretty cool synergy. Playing the 1 Wand, I'm playing 1 Gizmek as the Dark Machines, and then I'm also playing just as more normal summons, because like I said before, you really need to see an Orcust normal summon. I'm playing Armageddon Knight, Dark Grepher, and Rhoda. So it gives me 6 starters for the Orcust engine, and then Rhoda also cross-pollinates really nicely with the PKs, because they're obviously all warriors. For the rest of the Orcust cards, playing Foolish Burial. Now again, Foolish Burial can be used with the PK cards if you need it. And then I'm playing 1 Babel and 1 Crescendo. So that's the Orcust portion of the main deck. Relatively standard. I tossed up either just cutting the second symbol, or maybe replacing it with a 3rd Nightmare and playing 3 Nightmare, because you can still discard it through Torn Scales if you see it. But I like that Symbol can also be normal summoned. So if you just need to get access to Galatea without Nightmare and Wand and things like that, you can still set up Galatea with a Symbol as well, which is okay. Going into the Phantom Knight engine, it's a smaller engine, but back in 2019 it was only really a boots to get your Fogblades. But playing a little bit of a bigger Phantom Knight engine compared to what that was back in that day. But I'm playing 2 Torn Scales. Obviously opening Torn Scales and Gearsu doesn't feel too nice, but we do remedy that with one of the PKs that we're playing. Playing 1 Cloak, playing 1 Boots, and then the PK I was just mentioning was actually Stained Greaves. I'm not playing Gloves because I figured that Torn Scales can actually send to grave anything that Gloves was going to send to grave. Yeah, so Taunt Scales can do anything Gloves was going to do, realistically. So that's why I haven't run it. I'm running Greaves instead, because if you do open the Taunt Scales, you can send Greaves off Rusty, banish the Greaves to summon the Taunt Scales from hand, and still get access to those plays that way. And then the Taunt Scales can get you into these pretty freely as well. I'm then playing 3 Fogblade, and I'm playing 1 Shade Brigandine, which so far just in testing hasn't really come up all that often, but it's just another extender that we can access on turn 3 through Silent Boots if we haven't used Silent Boots already, or if we are 1 extender short and we've got access to Boots, then we can get the Shade Brigandine that way. So that's the PK engine that we're playing. The next set of cards is all just some generic, well not kind of generic, but they're just extenders that we're playing as well to help get more bodies on board. So I'm playing the 2 level 3 dangers. This can help get into Cherubini if you don't open any of the Orcust cards. So you have to play Phantom Knights, you've got some level 3 extenders to help get to Cherubini. And then probably just the best engine in the deck is Tracer, Recharger, Boot, 3 Quick Launch. This is pretty insane because especially opening Quick Launch, obviously opening the Tracer is still good. It still gets you into the Chaos Ruler, but really off Quick Launch can obviously excavate 5 and all your cards want to be in the graveyard anyway. But also it can excavate Gisu or Taunt Scales, so they become your normal summons. So it just gives you more access into your normal summons, which is really great. So opening access to Chaos Ruler just feels so free. And then the last cards in the main deck are just the disruption or the hand traps. Obviously you can tailor this portion of the profile to your locals, but I'm playing 2 Ash, 2 Cosmic, a Called by the Grave, and 3 Infinite Impermanents. So this puts the deck list to 41 cards. I really wanted to fit in. I was originally playing 6 hand traps plus Called by, but I really wanted to fit in Cosmic Cyclone because there can be only one is just such a house, and it really killed my Salamangreat strategy with the artifacts last week. So Cosmic Cyclone, just to respect the control matchup, which will often come up. So Impermanent Ash, both fairly generic. They also hit that same control deck, Guru, but they also hit other things as well. And then we side a lot heavier for combo in the side deck. So it's 41 cards in the main. The extra deck, I just realized I've got one little mistake here in the extra deck, but that's okay. I'll just explain what it's going to be. Rusty obviously is very standard. This is actually going to be a Borrelsword Dragon. I just forgot to change it before this, so that should be Borrelsword. And then playing Nightmare Unicorn, playing 1 Long Gisu. You can access this pretty freely. It just becomes another disruption on your opponent's turn, which is quite nice. Yeah, really nice. I actually really like summoning it. It feels really good. I'm playing 2 Galatea, playing 1 Cherubini, 1 Barricade Ball Blocker, and again, another mistake, that's meant to be IP Masquerena. I just forgot to swap it out of my other deck. Striker Dragon and Link Karibo, because you need the Link Karibo for the gears you play, unless you're going to make a Barricade Ball Blocker, but you kind of need to have it. So that's those. Then for Xyz monsters, I'm playing 2 Dingisu. Obviously Dingisu is such a strong card. Playing 1 Breaksword and 1 Chaos Ruler. So Breaksword becomes your makeshift Dingisu if you don't get access to the Orcust cards. So what I like to do is, if I'm only playing with the PK engine because I haven't drawn into the Orcust cards or have no access to Orcust, I like to set up a Breaksword in the graveyard, obviously with access to Fogblade, so then on my opponent's turn I can at least Fogblade the Breaksword back and use the Rusty Pop, which just becomes a makeshift Dingy. Obviously you don't get the send, but it's just another disruption that you can get access to. Obviously going second, Breaksword has some extra utility because you can actually pop your opponent's cards, but that's what we're running with in the extra deck. I really like the extra deck. I think it seems pretty much perfect, I think. Going into the side deck, playing 2 Droll and Lockbird. I just kind of found myself with 2 extra spots, and Droll's interesting. It comes up a bit, and I didn't want to play Lancia because obviously that cuts off my quick effects. Playing 3 Nibiru and 3 Dark Ruler. So between these 8 cards, I'm siding fairly heavily for combo if I need to. Then for the control matchups, I'm playing 3 Twin Twisters, 1 Red Reboot, and then siding for first, 2 Anti-Spell and 1 Imperial Order to finish off the side deck. So we'll see how this goes at locals, and I'll let you know. All right, I'm going to do some test hands really quick just to show you kind of what the deck is able to do consistently. All right, so our first hand, Torn Scales, Impermanence, Fogblade, Orcust Nightmare, and Armageddon Knight. Okay, so looking at this hand, obviously it's good because we've got a going second card in Impermanence, which is nice. Now, what we're going to do in this hand is, it's interesting. Like, we could obviously just normal summon the Armageddon Knight, but if the Armageddon Knight gets stopped, then we just have nothing. So Torn Scales dies to, well, using Torn Scales dies to 1 less thing. So if their only interruption is Ash, at least we can discard the Nightmare and still get some value. So that's the route we're going to go with, because we've opened up Torn Scales with Nightmare, which is pretty good. Obviously both of these cards here die to Impermanence, and if that's the hand trap that our opponent has, then so be it. Actually, even if it is Impermanence, we can still... Yeah, we could still pay the cost for Torn Scales. So Torn Scales is definitely the right way to go here, because if it is Impermanence, we can still pay cost there. So we'll Torn Scales discard Nightmare. We'll just assume no interruptions just because we'll just see what we can do, but we'll send the Cloak. And just because we can now get access into Cherubini, we're going to do that. So we'll banish the Cloak, search the Boots. This will be decent because now we can actually put the Symbol Skeleton into the graveyard here. So we'll special out the Boots and we'll turn these two into our Cherubini. Okay, we'll activate Cherubini and send our Symbol Skeleton to the graveyard. Just means we can extend it just a little bit further now. From here, we're going to, I think we can just go straight into the Orcust stuff here now. So we'll banish the Nightmare. Actually, it's probably not the right way to go about that. We'd ideally like to get to Rusty first, I think. If we banish the Boots, we can trigger the Torn Scales. Boots can search. We've already got a Fogblade here, so we probably don't need to search the second Fogblade. We can actually, we'll go to Boots and grab the Brigandine. Because we'll still get at least double Fogblade with the Rusty effect. So that's going to trigger also the Torn Scales to summon back. And we can do the Shade Brigandine, summon out. And we'll go into Rusty using these two. Now it's really important going first that we use this zone up here for Rusty, because often we can end on Long Gearsu, and Long Gearsu gets its most value when it's in this zone here, if we're summoning it not obviously in the extra monster zone, because then it's pointing up to our opponent's extra monster zone, which is where we get that extra send from. So if our opponent accesses the extra monster zone, we can use Long Gearsu to send it. But Rusty in this zone is really important because obviously the arrows of Long Gearsu isn't going to get you over here. Yeah, if you need. So we'll put Rusty over here, and from here we can use the Rusty effect. Now we're not going to be saving this Torn Scales; it is going to get banished. So, I mean, we could obviously send the Stained Greaves here, but there's not really any. It does give us nothing. So we'll send the Torn Scales, and just acknowledge that this one is going to get banished. But because the PKs aren't really the focus, we're not too worried about them getting banished. I know the whole point of PK is that it's recursive in its own deck, but in this deck, it's not too bad. Okay, so we set the Fogblade. Now we can go into some of our Orcust plays here. So we'll banish our Nightmare. The other thing I really like about this deck is that it does not matter if you lock yourself into dark straight away, because there's nothing that's really, there's no cards that aren't really an issue. There's no cards that we really, actually, our whole extra deck is dark is what I'm trying to say. So locking ourselves into dark through Tracer or through an Orcust effect, so the ordering of the effects doesn't really matter at all. So banish Nightmare, send Wand, we'll banish the Wand, summon back the Nightmare. Now we can go into our Galatea. Okay. So only other real play now here is Symbol. Which means, unfortunately, we're not going to get to Long Gearsu here in this play because we want to set up Ding. So we'll banish the Symbol now to bring back the Nightmare. We'll use the Galatea effect. I obviously want to keep Symbol because we're going to attach it with Ding, but we'll shuffle back World Wand and get Babel. And then we are very free to make Dingirsu. Dingirsu effect to attach Symbol, and we can link for 2 into our, again, this is IP Masquerena, and we'll put it over here. And we can obviously set our Fogblade and our impermanence. So this is where we're finishing off. We've got Symbol engraved, we've got Nightmare engraved, so we can obviously do the Symbol and Dingirsu play. Into Rusty Zone, we've got IP to summon out Unicorn. Because we already had the impermanence, we could even hold the Fogblade and just have this as our double monster negation here, because we probably don't want to necessarily discard the Armageddon Knight with the Nightmare, which is what we'd be summoning off the IP. We'd much rather save the Armageddon Knight, so discarding the Fogblade, which gives us access into then something like Torn Scales in the graveyard or Rusty. The other thing we can do is actually IP into Long Gearsu after summoning back Ding, which is another play that we can absolutely do. So we would obviously banish Symbol, summon out the Ding, IP into Long Gearsu. So depending on, it depends on the deck that we're playing against, obviously. So this will give us one send, non-targeting send of the extra monster zone. So if we think that's better than something like Unicorn, then obviously that's a route we can go down. Obviously, if we do Long Gearsu, we'd have to preemptively use the Nightmare as well. And use that to send maybe a Symbol. We could send the Gizmek in that situation. It really depends. But that's test set number 1. Obviously that worked pretty much perfectly, did everything that we wanted it to do. And we will do a second one. Alrighty, test set number 2, we have World Wand, Boots, Boot Sector, Rotor, and Jackalope. Okay, so in this hand, obviously we can already see that we have 0 access into the Orcust cards. So in this situation, yes, I mean, we're in a similar situation where we can Rotor for Torn Scales, and Torn Scales has value with what it can discard, but the Wand is obviously useless without access to any of the other Orcusts. So we are going to be rotoring for Gearsu in this situation. Not Gearsu, I can't do that. That would be very illegal. But we can rotor for Dark Griffer. Dark Griffer is probably better in this situation because we can obviously special summon it. So later on we still save our normal summon, so it can come up. So we can Dark Griffer by discarding World Wand. Just gets that out of our hand, and then we can Dark Griffer, discarding Jackalope to send Orcust Nightmare. The Jackalope will then trigger and summon out Tsuchinoko. Now what we're going to do here, we can obviously go into some Orcust plays here, but we might actually normal summon the silent boots, just because we haven't normal summoned. And by normal summoning the boots, it gives us another 3 to make a Cherubini, which gives us access to, we could send like Torn Scales, which is pretty good. So we'll normal summon the boots and turn boots plus Tsuchinoko into Cherubini. We'll use the Cherubini effect and we'll send, we send the Torn Scales here because Torn Scales would trigger off the boots being banished. Fortunately, this means we're going to be kind of using up our whole hand, but the boot is pretty dead, so it's not the end of the world. We can... we can just make Rusty here, that's fine. So we'll make Rusty, and then we can banish the boots to add the Fog Blade. Don't think we're gonna, actually, we might want the Shade freaking, no, actually, no, we'll go the Fog Blade because we've already got access to Symbol. So the Torn Scales obviously would trigger summoning out. Now we could discard the, no, we're not gonna discard the Fog Blade, we'll keep that. We'll discard the Boot Sector Launch. And that's the Torn Scales effect. So we can send the Cloak. Now, just thinking of timing, we should have done this a bit differently. We backtrack it just a little bit. So we have our Torn Scales off of Cherubini. Dark Grepher was on field. Cherubini was on field. Rusty was in extra. Boots was in graveyard. Fog Blades was in deck. Cloak was in deck. Sector was in our hand. What we're going to do is we're actually going to do the Silent Boots thing here now. So we'll banish the boots to search the Fog Blade, which will trigger the Torn Scales to summon out. We'll then use the Torn Scales, discarding Sector, to dump Cloak. The reason we're going to do all this now is because then we'll banish the Cloak, grab the Stained Greaves. We'll do it this way because we'll get the Stained Greaves trigger when Rusty is summoned, because otherwise we're just going to have no way to access our Stained Greaves. Obviously this way is obviously just, we're dumping our whole hand pretty much here, which we've acknowledged that we're doing already. But, then Rusty sends Cloak. Wait, what have I done? No, that's right. And then we'll go, on the summon of Rusty, we can trigger the Greaves to summon itself out. And we can use, and we'll keep it at level 3. We can use the Rusty effect, sending our Torn Scales to set a Fog Blade. Not really in any need of extenders here. And now we can play Orcust. So we'll banish the Nightmare, send the Symbol. Banish the Wand, summon out the Nightmare. I'll summon it here. Now, we can acknowledge using the Torn Scales, that's fine. So we'll go Nightmare plus Torn Scales into Galatea. You can use the Galatea's effect, putting back the Wand to get Babel. We can summon Dingirsu. Actually, what we can do, just to show you kind of where we can get to Longirsu here. We could make Longirsu here. We can. No, I think I did stuff this up. So we could symbol back the Galatea. Yeah, no, that doesn't work. Does not work at all. I think it's just better to go for. We had these on field. It's just better to go Dingirsu and then Link for IP again. So pretty similar end board. Can set the fog blade here, make long gears. So again, depending on the matchup, we're in the pretty much the same position as test hand number 1. And yeah, so that's kind of what we're going for tomorrow. I know in terms of interruptions, it's more or less setting up the same thing that the deck did in 2019, which obviously was 2 years ago. So might think it's a little bit underpowered for today's meta, but it also, obviously the Orcust cards can grind quite a bit, which is nice. So gives us a bit of follow-up. But yeah, that's the deck we're going to be playing, and we will see how it goes. Thanks for watching.